Ladies and gentlemen, this is Coda Jacobs, the crusader and visionary behind a brighter future in wrestling. If you're an honorable and noble public servant like myself, you are listening to the Game Changer Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, celebrating 5 years as a podcaster, introducing Nate the Great!
No one told you life was gonna be this way. Your job's a joke, you broke, your love life's the away. It's like you're always stuck in second gear, when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year. But I'll be there for you when the rain starts to fall. I'll be there for you like I've been there before. I'll be there for you 'cause you're there for me too. You're still in bed at 10 and work again at 8.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am NateFNGreat. Welcome to the Game Changer Podcast. And if you haven't guessed by the music right now, one of the most iconic theme songs of one of the biggest sitcoms ever, I'm talking about Friends. Now, first off, I do want to state the fact that I have never seen Friends up until a few months ago. So already I know people are going to be gasping dramatically at that. But it's one of those things that just didn't really pique my curiosity until recently, until everything also got involved with quarantine, that I decided to start watching the show and see what the hullabaloo was about. And I will say this, that I am definitely missed out on something very special. So, talking about this sitcom is, I'm not gonna lie guys, I don't know if I'm gonna give it justice. This is one of the greatest TV series ever. And I truly do believe that. If anybody does not have this within their top 5, then they probably need to get their heads examined, because this is definitely in my top 5 of best TV series ever. It has everything that you would want. It's relatable. It has the romance. It has a little bit of action. It's comedic. It's just an absolutely fantastic show that talks about 6 friends going through their everyday lives. And honestly, guys, it's great. 236 episodes plus a reunion special, which I will cover in this episode. They averaged about, what was it, like almost like 2 million people per season. Their season finale had 52 million viewers on it. This is definitely a show that has touched a lot of people and has definitely created a lot of buzz. So, going to talk a little bit in depth about it, but not too in depth, because I think that anybody who has not seen it or has seen it, they kind of know some of the gist of it. Let's talk first about the characters. Great set of cast. Oh my gosh. I mean, Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matthew Perry, Matt LeBlanc, David Schwimmer. All of these actors really got their big start here with Friends. And it's just absolutely amazing to see, some of the opportunities that they were presented before. They actually mentioned on the reunion special that Jennifer Aniston, and I believe it was Matthew Perry, yes, they were also working on another show within their kind of deals. And it's kind of one of those things where they were kind of on the fence about which side they wanted to go, but once they saw kind of like the reaction and felt the connectivity with the cast members like they did, they definitely went with Friends, and it became something very special. I mean, we go into depth about the characters. Rachel Green, played by Jen Aniston, is starting off as, this very spoiled brat, expecting everything to be handed to her. Just this really huge, rich girl that at first you just absolutely hate, because of the fact that she's expecting everything to be handed to her. She doesn't know what it's like to, have a job. She just wants to be that quirky painting kind of deal. But at the end of the season, you definitely see the evolution that she's gone through, where she definitely created, a life for her. She became a responsible adult. She became a responsible mother, and she really knew what she wanted in a relationship, which brings me to the next one, which would be David Schwimmer's character of Ross. Ross is one of those characters that I was not too fond of, but he also has his moments where he can be a very thoughtful guy, where he can definitely be that character that a lot of people can relate to. I mean, I don't know how much people can relate to a paleontologist, but he likes to make puns, and he also likes to make jokes at really bad time. But that's kind of a guy thing, so I think that's kind of relatable in a lot of ways. And you see the relationship that he has with Rachel going from, really good friends to actually being more than that, to it's just a roller coaster between these two. And it's very interesting to see that. Ross is also one of those guys who honestly has the worst of luck when it comes to women. He got divorced 3 times during the show. And it's just amazing to see that he still tries to, keep some kind of optimism, even though life is definitely holding him down. Courtney Cox, playing the role of Monica, which I know a lot of people can definitely relate to because of the fact that she's kind of controlling, but also a neat freak, but she can also have a very caring heart. She's one of those girls who, had a lot of self-doubt at the start of it. You definitely do see that, especially when she's a kid. She was fluffy. I don't like to use the word fat because it just seems a little bit more demeaning. But she definitely turned herself around and became one of the, head honcho characters on there. And she made it good for herself. She was able to take that, love for food and made it into a profession where she became a chef and definitely created a great career for herself and for her future hubby, spoiler, Matthew Perry, a.k.a. Chandler, who honestly may be my favorite character of the entire series. The fact that he is so sarcastic, that he's so just one of those guys who can be very humorous even when he's not trying to be. He's one of those guys who just is so relatable to me in the ways of just, realizing that, no matter how hard he tries, a lot of times his life is just going to be turned upside down. When he thinks he's doing the right thing, it's more likely the wrong way. But seeing his, kind of like see where he came from, where he's just one of those guys who's just working with data and numbers, and then he just evolves into something that he really loves to be, and that is to work with advertising and become a father. It's really cool to see that kind of, thing build there. And I do love the relationship that, Monica and Chandler had, because at first they were kind of just friends that were just kind of with each other, nothing really too special, just, nothing too crazy going on. Then one night in London, that all changed, and they realized after a certain while that there was no going back and that they were going to be with each other forever, which I think is so beautiful to see, because I loved the relationship between Chandler and Monica more than I liked it between Ross and Rachel, because they had their fair share of fights just like Ross and Rachel had, but Monica and Chandler definitely tried to make sure that they could work things out, and they tried to make sure that they were able to really get to understand each other a bit more, to the point where they accepted all their faults. And they said, let's finally give to each other. Let's finally become that couple. Let's finally become that. Let's finally become the people that we want to be. And it's just really great, because you definitely do see the evolution where with Monica, she rubs off on Chandler, and Chandler becomes a bit more serious as time goes on, and Chandler rubs off on Monica because Monica definitely does a lot more, wacky stuff, and she definitely does give more of a humorous side to her. So it's really cool to see that, and it's just so organic. It's so very well done. Bravo to the creators of this. They definitely made the Monica and Chandler relationship, something that I definitely really enjoyed seeing. Which brings me to Lisa Kudrow, who plays the role of Phoebe. Now, Phoebe is one of those characters I'm not too fond of, but at the same time, she has also her moments like Ross has, where she can be this really caring and loving person, especially when it comes to her friends. But early on, she became this person who just decided to give birth to triplets, and they never really go too deep with this, because I think that with Phoebe, she knew that what the risk was, that with her having this pregnancy, that she was probably never going to see her kids again, unless she's portraying the role as their aunt instead of their actual mother. It's something that I think that they didn't go too deep into, but I think at the same time, Phoebe's personality definitely worked a bit with that, where she had so many other things that were going on in her life right now that I don't think that she let, the fact that, she gave birth to these 3 beautiful children really bother her too much, which I know sounds mean, but at the same time, she wants what's best for her kids, and what was best for her kids was to give them to her brother. That just sounds still weird when I think of it that way, and whenever they bring it up, it just kind of sends an uneasy chill amongst my spine. It also brings a thing to me. It's just it's weird. It's weird. Just for those of you that have not seen it, go see it and you'll understand the context of it. For those of you that have seen it, you understand the context. Brings me to my probably second favorite character, Joey, played by Matt LeBlanc, who is one of the biggest goofballs that I've ever seen. He's slow at times, but in all honesty, he gets some of the best reactions from the audience as well as from me, and it all comes from his facial reactions. When he finds out about, Monica and Chandler hooking up, just that look of like, wait a minute. And another moment where finds out that Ross and Rachel hooked up at one point. Just, you see the eyes just widen. It's so funny seeing that. Joey also is an aspiring actor who's worked on Days of Our Lives and has worked also in theater, which I admire and respect quite a bit, even though one of them did involve him getting onto a spaceship, which, what? But you see Joey going from like being a, womanizer to somebody who wants to be in that relationship where it's just, one person that he can come home to every day, who can just be there to love and support him and make him a really good meatball sandwich, which all honesty is great. I love that his kryptonite is either pizza or a meatball sub, but he's also part Italian, so it makes the most sense. All 6 of these characters definitely have points where they can either be center stage or they share a fair amount throughout episodes. There's never really been one of those moments where you thought to yourself, well, this series is more about, this character, or it's more about this character. No, it was literally documented so well that it always felt like everybody got a fair enough amount of screen time. And like I said, there were some deals where it did focus more on Phoebe, like when she was having the kids, it was more focused on her. When Rachel was considering getting back with Ross, it focused a bit on her and Ross a bit. The relationships between Monica and Chandler, they kind of sprinkled in a little bit here and there. And it's just so, like I said, it's so well done. I absolutely love the fact that they definitely create a wonderful environment where you don't feel like anything's forced. You don't feel like anything is just, caught off by surprise in a cheesy kind of way. It really felt like 6 friends that were going through everyday life because, eventually they were going to end up seeing these kind of things. They dealt with a lot of these different issues in life. Whether it was, unemployment, whether it was dealing with the realities of not being able to have kids, which I honestly think is one of the toughest episodes that I've had to get through because of the fact that, Chandler and Monica are two of my favorite characters on there, and they're my favorite couple of the entire series. And just hearing, that deal where this show does so much greatness with the comedy, but they also can bring the serious matters to it. And when you feel those serious moments going, you definitely feel that connection. You feel like you're a part of that. You feel like you're a part of something that, makes you sad, or it makes you just fill up with joy and with glee. It's so absolutely amazing. And one of the things I loved about the reunion episode was the fact that they showed, people around the world and how much this affected them, when they were growing up. There were people that were talking about how, Friends was the best way that they learned English. They talked about how this was something that helped, make a connection with other people. This is something that really helped them get through life, because they could be going through all these tough times and all these tough days, and they turn on Friends, and it's kind of like all the reality just kind of just washes away, because now they're watching somebody else kind of go through the same struggles, but they're also relieved at the fact that they overcome those struggles. And it makes them, super happy as well to see that, because then that gives them that hope that they can overcome those struggles as well. Friends is such a powerful TV series. I never thought I would see that. I mean, I've watched a lot of random series like, Scrubs. What was one of the more recent ones that I reviewed? Once Upon a Time, and a couple of other series that I never really had that full-on, connection with, because some of it was either, fantasy-based, or they focused a little too much on the comedy side of things. With Friends, like I said, they found that balance where they could balance the serious moments with the comedic moments, and it's just absolutely insane seeing that, but it's also wonderful seeing that. It's one of those series that can never be replicated, and there are so many examples I can make about, Friends making these moments where you can relate to them compared to some of the stuff that you have there. The one that came to mind that I wanted to bring up was, I could relate more to Chandler when he's thinking that, going back to the same girlfriend, i.e. Janice, would be more beneficial, because at least it's basically like a safeguard, to where I can't relate to a kid from The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl. I know series movie doesn't really mesh, but you'll get the point that I'm making, where this random kid is getting bullied and makes the accusation, and this one kid is like, I didn't do this, send him to the principal's office and have him expelled. I'm like, what kid nowadays would even say that? It's stupid. It's dumb. With Friends, you don't feel like anything was forced. Everything was organic, and you definitely can see that. And one thing that really shocked me was the chemistry that, Jennifer Aniston and David Schwimmer have, Ross and Rachel, because they actually had a bit of real-life chemistry between the two of them. And it felt like what was being delivered on screen was also something that was kind of the same way off screen as well, because Schwimmer basically played it out there. He said, well, there was always a time where, we thought maybe we could work, but then one of us would be in a relationship and the other one would not be, but we were adults and we were respectable of that. But we felt like, and it was one of those things where they lived vicariously through Ross and Rachel to see what that kind of relationship would be like. And I think, in all honesty, it was kind of like that. It was something that really translated very well on screen. And some people might be wondering, why it seems so real. More than likely, it probably was that real. They definitely really loved hanging out with each other. They really connected with each other on an emotional level, as well as more than likely on a physical level. You never really know when it comes to the scenes. It's just something that you can't replicate, and you can't just put two people together and think that it's going to work. They have to have that kind of bond build up to that. And Rachel and Ross, they build that, on screen, and Jen and David continue building that off screen. I thought that was absolutely amazing to see that. So, what were some of my favorite moments and favorite episodes in the series? One of the ones that definitely got me is there's a lot of great scenes in this. Anytime that they would have, like the duck and the chicken in there, I thought those were always funny. They kind of were just there for the sake of being there. The trivia one is one that I absolutely love, just because it's something that is so relatable, where we have guys versus girls, and you kind of are, as a guy, I'm rooting for, Joey and Chandler to win the apartment, and just seeing that final moment where, Chandler and Joey just are up celebrating. They're just dancing because they won. I loved that kind of stuff. I really liked the cheesecake episode where Rachel and Chandler, they get like cheesecake sent to them by accident, and the episode ends with them eating cheesecake off the floor, and Joey just comes in nonchalantly, casually just comes in. He has a fork in his pocket, and he's like, "So what are we having?" Just that kind of stuff. And of course, I think one of my all-time favorite moments is going to be the couch scene, where Ross is refusing to pay for deliveries for his couch into his new apartment, so he's basically just having Rachel and Chandler help him get it up the stairs, and the ever iconic quote of "Pivot, pivot, pivot," and there's Chandler, "Shut up, shut up, shut up." It's just such good stuff. And one of the cool things about that makes it one of my favorite scenes is that while my family really had a full, knowledge now that I've never watched, Friends in its entirety, I got to sit down and watch that scene with them. So that connects also on, just an emotional level with me, because I get to have something cool to connect with as far as, a great TV series. Because it's hard to connect with, certain members of my family, because I'm the only one in the family that really likes professional wrestling. So whenever they, try to work with someone, or I try to work with them, as far as like a series go, like I'll give my mom a hard time about her Hallmark movies, or I'll maybe, join in on a series with my dad where he's watching something that's historic. When it comes to my cousin Aaron, we just kind of sit and watch whatever we kind of want, really. But what's really cool is that my brother was saying that, after they saw the pivot scene, they literally started watching Friends as soon as that was over. So they're on their own binge watch right now. I love this series, and I will definitely say that this is definitely my number one TV series that I absolutely enjoy seeing. I can really say that, like I said, other than a couple of moments where I feel like Phoebe and Ross kind of annoy me, I can't really see anything bad about the series. Now, when it comes to the reunion episode, which this is going to be filled with a lot of spoilers, like I've kind of sprinkled out, during the show, I think that there was just one thing that I did not like about that, but I'll get into that in just a bit. The reunion episode, for those of you that don't know, just aired about a few days ago, where they got the entire cast of Friends reunited. They're seeing the set. They are getting a chance to relive some of the memories that they had, talked about some of the great moments that they had on set, even talking about like some secrets, like of course mentioning that Ross and Rachel had great chemistry on screen. That's because David Schwimmer and Jennifer Addison had great chemistry off screen as well. And just seeing how it gets to be so emotional, and you definitely just see the emotions of what happens in the final episode, where they're just going up towards that stairwell, and the director mentions the final cut, everybody, the girls just start bawling. You see, like, you know, people like Matt LeBlanc and Matt Perry, they're just holding that emotion in, but you definitely do see it slowly coming out as, you know, it sinks in and realizes that this is the end of it, because this is something that is so, I'm going to say this was something that I didn't think I needed, but I'm glad that I got the chance to really see it, because it does kind of answer a lot of questions that people might like one person asked question of, you know, what were some of the things that you didn't like about the show? Apparently a good majority of the cast said they didn't like the monkey, they didn't like Marcel, and I think for good reason, but, you know, monkeys are wild animals. They even though they can be trained, you don't know what they're going to do. You just really don't. Got the chance to, you know, watch, and they actually also discussed like certain things that happened. Like there's a moment where Matt LeBlanc actually popped his shoulder out of his socket. That's something I did not even know. When they were doing the episode where he and Chandler are fighting over the chair, there's a moment where he kind of jumped onto the chair and it just kind of popped right out. It just was one of those things where it's like, ooh, that's rough. And you kind of see the severity of it when David Schwimmer, he kind of goes to the door where Matt LeBlanc is, and he just does like the hand across the throat deal, like cut it. It's just one of those things where it's like, wow, that's crazy to think that. See some like the moments that really make this series very special. One thing that also I love, and some people might call me crazy for this, but one of the things I really loved about this was that it definitely gave you guys a little bit more in depth of, you know, the personalities of everybody behind the scenes and how they were basically feeling like a family. And that's something that is so really hard to replicate, because when you do a show, and I'm speaking as a theater actor, that there are certain shows that connect with you on a more emotional level because either you got along with the people more, or you just absolutely, you know, loved doing the role that you were in. And there's only like a select few shows that I think I can say that I just absolutely enjoyed it, because of the fact that everything was, you know, evened out. It was a great role, and the fact that it was a great crew, and it felt like you were a part of a family. That's something that can't be replicated, and that's the biggest thing that I take away from this, is that this felt like a family deal with Friends. Everybody felt like they were a part of this family, and they were doing that. They were doing the show for 10 years. So to see this, you know, end is something that is damn sure emotional. It's something that can never be taken away from them. And one of the producers said best is, you know, when you see the final day, you know, happy it's done, but also sad to see it end, because of the fact that it's something that they knew they had to end eventually. And, you know, 10 seasons, that's crazy. I honestly thought to myself, I'm not going to get through 10 seasons. Went through it, no problem. I did not get bored of it. The only time that I had to stop was because of the fact that I either had to work, or I had to do some other commitment, or I had to get some sleep. Otherwise, I could have binge watched that for like weeks on end, and I would have been fine. Just seeing all that was just amazing. And I'm getting back to the point where I was making before. The relatability factor that I had with Matthew Perry. They showed that one blooper where Matt LeBlanc was just, you know, messing up. Well, it wasn't intentionally messing up. It was just so many things were just happening that really made it like a take after take deal, where he's just showing Phoebe his deal from Soap Opera Digest. First time around, he just fell. Second time around, he's paying too much attention to that step that he tripped on and just couldn't get through it. Third time around, he moves a chair and it falls over. And then the final time around, this is something where I relate so much with Matthew Perry, and I don't know if I would have the courage to do this, but I also admire him for doing this. The final time, Matt LeBlanc and Lisa Kudrow, they are doing the scene fine. As soon as Matt LeBlanc sits down, here comes Matthew Perry. He just fumbles over, falls on Matt LeBlanc. Everybody's just busting out laughing. And Matthew Perry explained it as something that he really kind of, I think he almost had like anxiety because of this. He saw it as a moment where, you know, somebody was getting a laugh and he wanted in on those laughs. So he kind of made that moment, and he's done a couple of those moments, you know, during the bloopers. You'll see him kind of pop up every now and then during the blooper reel. He'll just do like some random deals, like he'll just pop out of nowhere, or he'll give some of the characters a hard time. He'll just do these kind of things where he knows that it's going to get, he is hoping that it's going to get a laugh, and they more than likely will. And it's one of those things where it's like, he's a bit of a class clown, which I can relate to. He's one of those guys that I can definitely relate to because of the fact that, you know, it's not something that he's trying to do to, you know, make it all on him. It's like, no, he wants to, you know, try some new, I think he just wanted to try some new things where, you know, see if it would work, but he also wanted to, you know, just make things funny. I mean, it may also have alleviated a lot of the stress that people might have been having. Like Matt LeBlanc probably was feeling stressful after having to do that deal 4 times. Now seeing, you know, somebody else kind of doing this kind of joking deal probably took a little bit of, you know, anxiety off of him because of it. He probably wasn't too happy of the fact that he had to do the take, you know, a 5th time, but at the same time, he's loving he didn't get mad at Matthew. He didn't like, you know, cuss him out or anything like that. No, he thought it was funny and he went with it. Matthew Perry is definitely one of those characters, one of those people, I should say, that I have learned to appreciate a lot more as an actor. I've seen him in 17 again, which I think is absolutely hilarious. I really loved his work here on Friends. I think I may need to just start watching more of his stuff so I can definitely kind of appreciate it more, because he's definitely one of those guys that I can understand that, you know, he wants to be the center as far as comedy goes, but he definitely, it didn't reach a point where he was just doing it so much that he was taking this, you know, the attention off of the other characters. He's just popping in every now and then, and that's what made it work for him. So with that being said, what problem do I have with the reunion? I did not like the fact that they kind of cut in and out the whole deal with, you know, them having this nice warm, you know, connection. They're kind of redoing they redid one of the quiz sketches, and that was great. They sat down and watched old moments from the Friends deal, whether it was a blooper reel, whether it was, you know, takes that they'd done time and time again, just kind of, you know, connecting and reminiscing about this kind of stuff. But then they would cut back to James Corden and going into like the talk show deal, which, in all honesty, I was not a fan of that. And when I looked at some of the early reviews before watching it, I saw them kind of, you know, mention that fact, which, in all honesty, it did kind of take away from it. It just kind of felt like, you know, they were going on this kind of momentum and then they stopped just so that, you know, James Corden can ask these questions. It felt like there's some of these things where it's like, we already know this stuff. We don't need it repeated for our deal. We know some of this stuff. It was great to see, you know, the executive producers again. They had the people who played the Gellers and Janice. They made a return to this. I thought that was cool. But yeah, just James Corden definitely repeated some of the questions that we already knew the answers to. They had this weird like fashion show deal that featured Justin Bieber as a Sputnik, which I'll admit that was pretty funny and entertaining. That was entertaining just to see him be like, wow, this is a guy who did all this singing and now he's a runway model for a show that he knows that he could never match. Maybe I'm being cruel. Maybe I'm being mean. I don't care. It's Justin Bieber. I'm not a fan of him. But seeing that, I will say this, that some people might say, well, did you hate the whole deal with Lisa Kudrow and Lady Gaga? Honestly, no. I did not hate that at all. Honestly, if they would have done a deal where they had, the reminiscing moments, because it starts off with them all coming in to the studio one by one by one, meeting up with everybody and just kind of looking at the stage, seeing everything there. And it was great. That was something that was great. And if they would have gone from that to, them just sitting around talking about the episodes, reminiscing about some of the great moments that they had, and then throw in like those little sprinkles of, they did the trivia deal where they were basically talking about how the quiz was about stuff that happened during the show. So I thought that was really cool. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, not only test, the cast members' knowledge, but also kind of test the diehard fans. I think it was very, very nostalgic to see that. Then they had the whole Lady Gaga and Lisa Kudrow duet that they had for that, where they were singing Smelly Cat, in all honesty. I didn't have an issue with that. I thought it was kind of a combination of like the classic behind the scene Friends with a mixture of like a Saturday Night Live feel to it. It's one of those things where I think if they would have done more of that and taken out the entire like stuff with the interview deal, that would have been better. That, in all honesty, would have been just something that would have made this like something more enjoyable, in my opinion. But I'm not going to say that it wasn't worth it. Like I said, about a good chunk of it, I loved seeing them talk about, their moments, some of their favorite deals from that, and then it ends with them saying, we need to not... This is crazy, because this is only the second time that the cast has all been together since the show was done. That is something that is just crazy to think. And they were stating how at the end of it, they're basically saying to each other, well, we're definitely not going to, wait another 15 years to all meet up again. We all need to, meet up for like a dinner and stuff like that. In all honesty, if they would have made that like an annual thing, I think that'd be cool. Just having that deal where, annually, I'm sure one of them has like an Instagram deal where they just take that one picture of them being like, this is a tradition. We're all meeting up. What would be even funnier is if it was something around Thanksgiving time. Just because those Thanksgiving episodes are so fun. Overall, I've already told you guys how I feel about the series. Told you guys what I feel about the reunion deal. Friends is something that is very special to everyone. And whether it was, you were a fan on like, a regular average Joe level, or whether you were one of the big time stars, like they mentioned a couple of people that they've had on the show, some great guest stars on there, like Bruce Willis, Brad Pitt, Tom Selleck, so many great actors and so many great people that came on there that just really showed how much they enjoyed being a part of Friends and how much of an honor it was that they get to actually say the fact that, hey, I get to say that I was on Friends for like an episode or two. It's one of those things where it is such a cultural impact, and it also reminds us of the simpler times, in all honesty. I absolutely loved this series. It really is something that reminds you that, friendships are going to last the longest because of the fact that, show love, care, and compassion to each other, and you're always going to be with them through the good times and through the bad times. It's a wonderful series. I cannot recommend it enough. Guys, thank you so much for listening in. Sorry it's been a while since I've done a podcast. I've just been doing a lot of things with work and with family commitments. I've just been really busy trying to get things sorted out. And I'm finally really starting to get that, fire in me to do these podcasts again. So you can definitely expect 2 podcasts a week from the Game Changer podcast. Might even go 3, just to sound crazy. But you'll have to wait and see. So, with that being said, I've been NateFNGreat from the Game Changer podcast. Check me out on Facebook. You can also check me out on Twitter and Instagram at RealFNGame. You can also check out my new Instagram, which is at RealFNGameTWS, where I will be posting stuff from the wrestling show. Definitely check me out on so many different podcasting formats, including Spreaker.com, which has always been our home since day one. You can also check us out on YouTube, Google Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, so many great places and more, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, be safe, be smart out there, be respectful, and remember, you can make a difference one day at a time, one moment at a time even, by simply being a game changer. Thank you guys so much. See you later. Bye-bye.
So no one told you life was gonna be this way. Your job's a joke, you're broke, your love life's to your way.
It's like you're always stuck in second gear, when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year. But I'll be there for you.
When the rain starts to pour,
I'll be there for you.
like I've been there before.
I'll be there for you, 'cause you're there for me too.
Still in bed at 10 and work begin at 8. You've burned your breakfast so far, things are going great.
Your mother warned you there'd be days like these, but she didn't tell you when the world is brought you down to your knees, that I'll be there for you. When the rain starts to pour, I'll be there for you, like I've been there before. I'll be there for you, 'cause you're there for me too. I'll be there for you. I'll be there for you. When the rain starts to pour, I'll be there for you, like I've been there before. I'll be there for you, 'cause you're there for me too. And you're there for me too. Smelly cat, it's not your fault.